Hey guys, it's Troy here. Wanted to share with you my latest vintage toy. This is a 1942. It is a Parker pen. Many of you will recognize this as being a Parker Vacumatic. The Vac started in the 1930s, right around 1932 or so, and this is a decade or so into the production run. It is a Senior Maxima. They used to call this the oversize, and then they changed the name to a Senior Maxima. This particular one is in the azure blue, and it is one of the prettier ones, and I kind of enjoyed it. I found I guess I could say a halfway decent price on this particular model. So I went ahead and picked it up because, having another Parker Vacumatic has actually been on my wish list for quite some time. For a while, I've only had this one right here. And I picked this one up at the DC Pen Show a couple of years back. I've been told that this particular cap was probably not original to this particular pen. I salute the people who can actually take a quick glance at it and tell you that. I am not one of them. I have to actually go look at stuff. As a matter of fact, I did some looking on this particular pen to make sure that, okay, that cap band, let's see, the cap and the style of the blind cap here on the end actually being a tapered round is actually appropriate and for the year. And yep, it turns out that everything looked right according to all the guides that I saw on different websites. So I also wanted one that's a little bit bigger than the other one. As much as I loved how the other one wrote, it was just a hair small, and I wanted the biggest one they had, and this big boy right here. The 1942 production run had a problem with wartime. The azure blue did not have a tremendously long run for production from what I have read. So I'm just quite happy with this thus far. So I was able to get it, ink it up, and play with it. So it does have a fairly nice imprint here. You can see right there that it does say George S. Parker, Parker Vacumatic, made in USA. And then you really can't tell as you get further down the stamp on it, but that's where the date code would come in. And Parker had a date code they instituted, I believe, in 1938 or so, if I remember correctly, going by memory. This one had 2, which tells me it's 1942. And it actually has, it looks like, and it's really hard to tell because it's just a hair worn, a little dot on either side. And if it's got the dot on either side, that tells me it is second quarter of 1942 for its production in the middle of World War II. It does have some personalization on it. I can see right here. It's not really all that obtrusive though. I think it's like PTK is what it looks to be, somebody's initials right there on the pen. But it's you got to really be looking for it, or else you may miss it. But I'm not too worried about that. Personalizations on pens, especially vintage pens. A pen like this that's 60, 70 plus years old, I'm not too worried about whatsoever. All right, so it's kind of neat. It's got the band where it's got hash marks essentially. Hash marks one way, hash marks the other, all the way around. I've seen some others that actually have a wider band, but this particular one is the appropriate band for this period of time. And then you've got the nice clip. Of course, you've got the Parker arrow, which is very much typical of Parker, and it does have the Parker name right there on that clip and that blue diamond as well. It does have a 14 karat nib. On this particular nib, you've got the 10 feathers on its arrow, so you should be able to see that nice little Parker arrow right there on the nib itself. On the blind cap, you pull that off, and you can tell that it was just before they started to go to the plastic plungers. So this little speed plunger here, it actually works very well, very springy, very nice. And I was able to get a fairly decent fill on this particular pen. Put that back. So I was quite happy with it. Can't complain whatsoever. The transparency wasn't too bad on this particular one either. You figure a pen this old, sometimes you get some really dark ambering regardless of the color, where it actually starts to turn, you know, more of an orange or a deep yellow kind of thing. But actually, you know, it's just a tad bit when you hold up to a light. Kind of hard to do now because I do have some ink in it. I'm not going to show you how to fill it up because I've already done that here in this pen because I wanted to get it and play with it today. One of the things I like about it is it can be posted if you like. That cap does back weight it just a little bit though, and it is long enough to fit in my hand without having that cap. So I will do it without posting this particular pen. That 14 karat nib has got that two-tone to it. It's fairly well taken care of. This pen supposedly has been thoroughly restored by somebody, and I was able to pick it up at, I thought, was a fair price for a Senior Maxima. So this is my Parker Senior Maximum. You know, this is a nice Vacumatic. The big boy, as I like to call it. You know, it's a decent writing pen. I can't complain too much about the nib. I took a look at it, and I may just smooth it out just a hair. I mean, it's not bad. I put it under a loupe, I inspected it, and it actually looks to be in decent shape. So I really don't have any obvious signs of anything that might present, except maybe just a little bit of smoothing. Just a tiny little bit, and maybe I'll be able to make that just a hair better. But overall, it still does fairly well, especially when you're dealing with a Rhodia dot pad here. And it seems to be a fairly wet writer. Every single time that I went to go use this pen so far since I've had it, it's been a wet writer. As a matter of fact, I've already been through one fill of this pen already. It actually ran out on me just the other day when I was writing a letter to somebody. So I went ahead and refilled it. So I put into this thing some Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. Now, it's not showing up here, but you did see it a little earlier in the video when I was looking at the nib, and it actually ended up getting ink all over my hand. Well, one of the things is this pen seems to burp once in a while. You see how wet that is here on the T? There, it's still a very wet writer, and of course on this pad that doesn't soak in ink very well, it's going to stay that way. But I have had on several occasions where it had actually blurted out, or you'd have a drop of ink, and you know, I've been playing with it, wiping it off from time to time with that blue ink, especially after that last fill. You know, when I fill the pen and I wipe it off the nib, and then a little bit later on I'll be writing with it, and then it may start to blurt out a little more. So that's the only issue that I've had with it. And but you know, like right now, it's fairly dry. It's fairly nice. I'm not getting a whole burp of ink on it. But anyway, I did a whole lot of writing with this particular pen. It's a fairly enjoyable pen to be able to hold and write with because of the size. It's just about the right size to really enjoy. But you know, that's hopefully it'll continue to be a decent writer, and hopefully I won't get too much ink burp on it when I go to use it and you know, ruin any documents I've been using. Okay, so overall, you know, so far so good, with the exception of, you know, the ink blurt once in a great while. But I do like the size of the pen. I like overall how it writes. I think it's a decent pen to be able to keep here on my desk and use from time to time. It seems to have a decent ink capacity when you can get a good full ink draw on it. It's going to take you a little bit to get that done because it is a Vacumatic. And my other one is the exact same way. It takes a little bit to get a full inking. But, you know, I do like the Senior Maxima. It was on my list for a long time. I wanted a bigger Vacumatic than the one that I had, and I've got it.